Hi, I'm Christina.
And I'm Linda.
And that's it. Hi, everybody. Do my pageant wave.
Oh, wait.
No, you'd have to do it on the other side. I'm always thrown by the fact that it flips.
I know.
It flips you. We're sitting here in my office that seems to have got hot now all of a sudden since I hit live.
Yeah.
I hit live and now I'm like, now it's hot in here.
Wait.
I
need a fan to blow my hair.
After I told her that she didn't need to be nervous, then now all of a sudden I got hot.
I'm not nervous. When did I say?
She didn't say she was nervous. I'm sorry. She didn't say she was nervous.
Think about your other author.
My other author friend said she would be nervous if she was to do a live. Not this
That's
one.
right. The other one.
This one never would have said anything like that. I guess I could back up so that it's not like my head's like big and your head's tiny back here.
I do have, but I have an enormous head, like I do. So what is today? Tuesday. Okay. It's not even Thursday yet.
No, it should be. So we're here.
Mine was a long day.
Was it a long day?
Like, so busy at the office.
So why don't you tell everybody what you do? What's your day job?
Writer during the day.
You're a writer during the day and a writer afterwards.
Yes, and I don't know how I do it and put it in, and it's pretty tiring, but I love it. And so I go to work and I do my so-called 9 to 5 at the office, writing mostly marketing copy. And I do some editing too. And drinking.
We're drinking.
It's
Merlot.
It's
Behringer Merlot.
Juice.
It's adult juice
From its juice box. We just
it was a large juice box, about that tall, with a cork in the top.
Yeah.
So how do you come up with your storylines?
Oh, very good.
Like how was your inspiration for, say, this book? How did this come around?
This book actually, I had a few different storylines going on in my head. One of which I decided not to do is more like a time travel, where a woman goes to a flea market and she buys a necklace and it transports her to a different time. But I decided not to go with that. I couldn't figure out how to do it. Those are really hard. And then I decided that I really wanted to write a story about someone has to stand up for something that she or he believes in. And it kind of took off from there. I outlined it. It went a few different ways and turned out a little differently than I had anticipated when I first started outlining. But I wanted the conflict or the thing that she stood up for to come out of somewhat from an unlikely friendship, someone she'd met along the way that may not have been the type of person that she would have been friends with. Also, I didn't want the story to be, I wanted it to be a contemporary story, but not about divorce or children, and there are so many great books written like that, but I wanted to do something a little different. So I wanted it to be something that kind of took place at the workplace. So that's kind of how it sort of.
So I did like that the book had to do with work, because you're right, there are a lot of contemporary books where the drama and the conflict are usually something involving, your spouse or something like that, or at least a lot of the ones that I've read are about something going on with your husband or your kids, or and I really like that she was so conflicted about working with someone whose morals are different than yours, and whether that was okay, and I thought that really made for good. Cherise said she literally just finished the book.
Oh, wow.
Literally just finished it. Good job. That's great.
That's awesome.
But I really like that, the conflict of, is it okay to work with somebody whose morals are completely different than yours? Or, it's just work, because she was told that in the book, like, well, it's just work. You're just working with him. It's, that's, should it really be a big deal if just because this person does this in their spare time, what does that have to do with you? And you should just be able to get the money and do your thing. And, work doesn't have anything to do with what people are doing on, in their spare time.
I might,
and that I think is a big thing.
You bring that up, and it was interesting to write that because I could have taken it so many different ways. I could have taken it a lot farther than what actually happened. I don't want to. I really liked writing the boss's point of view because his was more like, how do we know what any of our clients are doing?
Right.
How do we know what any of us are doing on our free time? It was for him a lot about something else, and so he tried to make his point about that. And the way that she handled it, it's a little softer than I could have done. And I was thinking, on the most part, I've heard really positive things from readers about how Stephanie handled the situation. And then there were a couple of people, I really wanted her to do X, Y, Z, and I thought, yeah, we would all love to do that. But I felt a little more realistic because of the circumstances at the office, and not to give too much away, but something happens at the office.
Jennifer's like, it doesn't matter.
Oh, that's so funny.
She said, I'll finish reading.
Where she doesn't feel, Stephanie Britton doesn't feel comfortable doing too much. I guess rock, what's that expression? Help me out. I'm the writer.
Rock the boat too much.
Yeah, rock the boat too much.
Well, and to me, though, it did feel more realistic because you didn't have her just, guns blazing. Her reaction to me was more realistic for what I think would actually or could happen in real life, because most people do have, I don't know, mouths to feed, and I don't know if like being in a military background, there's only so much you can say to the people who you work with, or you could only do so much. You would never be able to go into a situation and be guns blazing just because someone you work with, has a different, moral compass than you do, or a political, feeling than you do.
I've seen the comments for the ones who read it, how you felt about the way she handled it.
Yeah,
Did you want her to go more?
Did you want her to react better, like stronger? I don't want to say better, but stronger to the situation, or do you think that she handled things right? Because to me, it just felt really realistic. The thing that I took from it, regardless of the situation, like, the situation in this book is Izzy's, his story, and her trying to tell him that he should share it. And him at first not really wanting to share it and being kind of reluctant about it. And her trying to really tell him that, you have this story and you need to tell this to people because people can learn from it. And to me, I've seen, with other circumstances and other things and other people trying to learn to become advocates. And this book, to me, just spoke to me a lot on whether we all have a responsibility, because to me in the book, she kind of tells him that, like, you have a responsibility to share your story. And, if you've had something happen to you, be it, the Holocaust, or, I have a friend who is a domestic violence survivor who lost a child to her ex-husband, and she's growing into an advocate for that, but it took her a long time to get there. And, or rape victims, and, anything like that, just being told, you have this experience and you have a responsibility to voice it. And that's just something that I pulled from it. And I don't know if that was something that you felt really strongly about, or if that was even something that you intended to put out there in the book, because that was something I got when I read it.
The first drafts were probably a little stronger in the way that she tries to tell him to talk about it. I kind of like made it a little less in your face, because I felt that, ultimately it's his decision. And also what I don't talk about in the book is that my father was a Holocaust survivor.
Oh, wow.
And he didn't talk about it until he was later in life.
Right.
And it's incredibly hard to talk about, so.
Oh, I bet.
You have situations where if you can talk about it, you should. If you have the wherewithal to do it and you can get up and talk about it. A lot of people don't want to, think about it. They'd rather not talk about it. And also, a little different topic, but it relates to this, is what was really interesting to me and something that I kind of deal with in my next book is the grieving process, because I've always hated when people say, your mother died a year ago, you should be smiling again, or you should stop being so sad. I don't like when people judge people on how long the grieving process takes. And to flip on that, if, a week later you're, out partying and dancing because you're celebrating the life of your mother or father, then that's great too. No one should judge anyone with how long it takes to grieve and how they grieve. So that's something that I deal with in different ways in the book. Some people like using humor, which Izzy did.
Yeah, most definitely.
Some people don't want to talk about it. Some people cry. Some people laugh. So to me, that's a really interesting subject to cover, and something that I do in my next book as well.
So you are working on another book now?
I am. If all goes well, I would like to knock on wood, sit 3 times over my shoulder. I am. It's I'm doing one final read through, and it will go to the formatter, and I hope to release it in the fall.
Oh, yeah.
It's a completely different story, but it also deals with family and a little bit of a moral dilemma and the grieving process. And it's, I'm excited to get it out there and have you read it.
I was going to say, I'm excited to read it. I was going to say, put me up there on the top of your list, because I can't wait to read it. Curious about the thought behind Stephanie mentioning several times that she couldn't believe Izzy didn't have kids. It seemed like she mentioned that several times, like it was rare that people chose not to have them.
That is such an amazing question, and I never even thought about it. And the fact that I mentioned it more than once makes people probably think that something is behind it. But there really isn't, I think, except that maybe she thought, I'm just thinking about my character, what a wonderful guy he was, and there wasn't, this legacy to continue. And I think I probably did it that way so that he could become connected to Stephanie's family,
to her
he didn't have a
family and her son. And
so I probably was thinking, well, maybe that's an easy way out to like get from step A to B. What would be to have him not have children, have him have lost his wife, he has no family, but that's kind of why they took in the students to live with him, which that was so much fun to write. Those students.
I loved him playing video games and stuff.
That was a blast. That was a blast.
As someone who admitted recently on YouTube that I play video games sometimes. I like the story and how there was more than just Izzy and the situation at work. Me too.
I do read reviews, and by the way, I've been a writer since I could, practically since I got out of college, I've been writing. So you kind of have to have a thick skin, to write. And I read reviews. I even read 1-star reviews. So I
just always hear that you learn a lot about them about the writing and everything else, even from the 1-star reviews. But I'm not I don't know if I have a thick enough skin for any of that,
let me take that back. On Amazon, on Goodreads, they're pretty vicious.
Goodreads is.
Yeah, on Amazon, because they actually have to write something, they take more time and they're a lot more thoughtful. And there was someone who gave me a 3-star review, and basically it said 3 in 1. So he kind of sort of liked that there was more than one plot. There were subplots that there were some parts that he didn't anyway. So to answer your question, there was a lot going on in the book. There were subplots, and there was another subplot, and there wasn't just one. I don't personally like books where there's just one plot. They kind of tell you sometimes in writing classes or in courses, stick with the one plot and get them there. And I find that the books that have like just one plot throughout the entire book, I get a little bored with it.
Right.
And I'm not going to name books because I don't bash authors or stories ever. But there's some that have a lot more going on I tend to like better. So that's probably maybe why I wrote one that had more stuff going on. One thing I didn't really want that we talked about earlier, I think Christine, you might have joined us a few minutes late, but we were talking about at the beginning how I didn't want to write a book about marriage or divorce and actually I wanted. It felt weird not having the husband in the story because the kids are in the story, so it'd be odd not to have him in the story. But I actually wanted them to get along,
right?
And
I think that's kind of a novel thing in books, because most contemporary books, there is like some kind of drama with the marriage. There's usually never a happy marriage, and there's usually some kind of drama with the kids, and the kids are usually rotten or there's some kind of issue. And I like reading books about people who are in different locations and different backgrounds and different things like that, because I have lived a lot of different places. And so I do enjoy the fact that, I like reading things with lots of different backgrounds and things like that. But I also do really love reading books with people who are close to my age and situations that feel more relevant to like my life. And it was refreshing to read a book with someone who was I kind of agree with you, Kat, where the whole family strife thing starts to feel samey, where it's like everything has a family strife thing. So to me it was kind of nice to read a book where it was like the family was okay and she's bringing her oldest kid to college, and the younger kid is okay. He's not shit. He's not like this horrible kid, And
he probably was just not during
the book part.
That comes later. I don't know.
I thought it was nice. It was nice to read this woman who was just trying to do her thing, and was a good person, and she had good friends, and I loved, I'm going to say her name wrong, Sveta?
Yeah.
Yep.
Svetlana. Yeah.
Svetlana. I loved Svetlana. I thought, well, how cool. I always read books and find these people that I want to be best friends with. And I write it on the blog all the time. I go like, this character in this book, I want to be my best friend. Like, I want to pull this character out of that book, plop her into my life, and have her be my new best friend.
I know several Russians, and I'm sure they don't think that they are, right. But
like a smushed together version.
Honestly, she isn't any Russian person I know.
Right.
But I wanted her to be feisty.
Right.
I wanted her to be smart as hell. She was a programmer.
Right.
And I wanted her to just have fun with almost Stephanie, 2 S's there. Why did I even say that? But and I to write those scenes, I actually went back to my previous life when I worked in a retail department store.
Right.
advertising department, and we had these cubes, and everybody would just say things back and forth, and you didn't have much privacy, and pretty much anything was said, anything goes in those situations. And I just imagined her teaching 70 some Russian words, and that's kind of like how it all started. And there were a few instances where I had to ask my husband, who's Russian, hey, how do you say this in Russian? So I wanted to get it right.
Love just those really sassy, strong female characters. Because I was thinking about, like, I don't know, this is like a tangent on books, but thinking about the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo books the other day and loving Elizabeth Solander's character so much, and just those really strong, badass women, and who are so intelligent and couldn't give two shits about anything. Sorry.
Do we have to believe them?
You know, just they don't care, and you know, what you see is what you get, and because sometimes, I don't know, it's just refreshing to not have them dumbed down at all.
Oh, I know.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's not,
people,
you know, it's not saying that, like, I'm not gonna go on some like giant feminist rant or anything, but it's just so nice to have these like just badass chicks. And how do you find the time to write?
Oh, with my busy life. Well, I'm so very busy
Traveling
all over the world, seeing rock stars.
How are you? How do you find the time to fit it all in?
Well, I did a lot of writing for this book about 4 years ago, the very first draft, before I went back to work full time. Prior to that, I was a freelance writer, and I worked fewer hours, but I still worked a lot.
Right.
What I do is, unfortunately, it takes away from family time. I work full time, and so the writing or editing or the business part of it is done either in the evenings or on weekends. I know a lot of writers who work full time get up at like 5 in the morning.
I was going to ask you if you were like a morning person writer or a night owl writer.
I snooze a lot. I cannot. It's hard for me to get up in the morning, so I don't function early in the morning. So it does have to be done in the evenings. And they're usually saying, "Are you working on your book?" And I'm like, "Yep, I'm working on the book." It's tiring, but it's my profession, but also a hobby.
Right.
So that's how I do it, I guess.
And you don't get sick of writing. It's horrible to say that, but writing during the day and then writing in the evenings, I mean, that's a whole lot of writing.
I do get tired of it.
Burnt out.
I have to put it away, and I really enjoyed, on the next book, there were some scenes that were really fun to write. So when they're fun scenes, they're fun, you know.
And that makes it better.
The hardest part is probably when I'm done with the draft. When I say draft, it's like draft 6 or 7, and I give it to my editor, and then she gives me back what's called the editorial letter, and that's about 5 pages.
Right.
Of all the things I need to fix, like character development, setting, plot, conflict, tension, all of that.
Right.
And then I kind of take it all in. I wait a couple weeks, do other hobby or just let it sink in and then get started on it. That can take anywhere from 6 months to a year, because either I have no idea what I'm going to do to fix it,
right,
or it's the job working full time, or both, or I just need a break. So I often tell, when people ask advice for writers, I often say that to remember there's no rush to publish. No one's telling you you have to have this book or essay or article published in 3 months or 2 months.
Right.
You need to take the time that you need to take to make it how you want to make it, or the best you think you can make it, and not worry about when it gets out there. Because it's too much pressure. How much time do you put into the research?
Oh, Sorry, I missed that one.
Oh, good question. A shit ton. A
shit ton.
You don't want to see my Google search.
Oh, I bet.
They probably want to lock me up, the things that I've searched on Google, especially for this book.
Well, and I also, and I don't want to say liked because that's probably not the right word, but the fact that this was Jewish and in France, and that was different than most stuff, most stories.
I don't know if you've read Sarah's Key, but
I actually haven't. It's on a list.
That takes place in France.
In France also.
Yeah, there are a lot of Germans who were deported to France and then off to the camps and to the other ones where they perished. But I did a lot of research. I checked out a lot of books from the library. I also went on the it's called Veterans History Project. It's part of the Library of Congress where you can actually read transcripts from veterans who served in the war, from like Korean War, Vietnam. As long as they served, they can tell their story, and they hope to get them all. And there are a lot of World War II transcripts on there, and I went to look at them. I read them. I read about nurses who were there, about medics, about people who liberated the camps and what they saw. So that was really interesting to read about.
That must have been hard.
Yeah, it was hard to read, but very interesting. And I checked out and read about Nazis, anti-Semitism, people in history that may or may not have been anti-Semites. Fascinating stuff. So that was a really interesting part of the book.
About Stephanie's mother yet? What do you feel was her role for advancing the book plot or connecting the characters?
Where's that one?
That is Christine.
Oh, I love Christine. You've got some amazing questions. That was another character I loved writing. I think someone asked me a question when I did like an interview for a blog, what was my favorite character and to write.
Right.
I think a lot of people, or what was my favorite character, and Svetlana's up there, but I think the mother. Because the mother cool. is not only cool, she's Southern, she's got her Southern way about her. What about her? It was really emotional to write her because she was a little older. She was in her 60s. She had, lost her husband. She was expecting this life with him, and it happens all the time in real life where you lose the person you love, and you're like, wait, we were supposed to, retire together. We were supposed to move here.
We had all these plans,
we had all these
and
plans.
now what am I supposed to do?
So I felt really, really bad for her. On the flip side, she was also very spunky, and there's a situation in the book that I don't know if it surprised people, but when Stephanie went to visit her, and she was in the bathroom, and she discovered something while she was sitting in the toilet in the bathroom. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but she had to ask her mother, about what's going on, and she's like, we're not going to spoil anything.
We don't want to spoil anything.
But I think most people have read the book. People want companionship. At any age. It connected the characters because there was that whole scene with Izzy, and how Catherine, that was her name. I couldn't remember the mother's name. Oh my God, how embarrassing. How, Stephanie really wanted her to be grandma, but she wanted to just live her life. I don't know how it really advances the plot. You got me on that one, Christine, but it does connect the characters.
Lots of interesting detail. Love the history. Also love the realistic description of what goes on in the ag world. That is from Marla.
Yeah, that was fun. That was, people say you should write what you don't know. I could never write like Harry Potter. She's so incredibly like, whoa, how did you even do that world building? I did a lot of research, and there were a lot of things I didn't know, but there were some things that I used based on, experience that they were not necessarily my own experience, but the ad world, I did have a lot of experience with the ad world. I knew how pitches worked with clients. I knew that, you had to show them, they never love the first thing you show them. You have to clean your office whenever a client comes.
Right.
You have a boss who usually just cares about the money and the billings and not much else. They care a certain extent of, keeping people happy, but it's, ad business is a revolving door. People, you lose account. You hopefully don't have to lay anybody off. And so there are those scenes where she's like, oh, he's calling me in the office again. Do we have to lay somebody off? And why do I always have to do the dirty work, So I loved writing those scenes. Yeah. And there's
I don't know when they say about, writing stuff that you don't know and all. I don't know how people can do it. How, and have to research the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you could.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm trying to think what other experience. That was the main experience, and family. I only have one kid, not two. So but I do have a boy. So that was fun to write the family parts.
I really thought it was neat that it was a year ago that I reviewed it on my blog.
And I have all these time hops popping up because May 2nd, which is coming up, will be the 1 year since it's been out. So it'll be
because Facebook told me that a year ago I was sharing it. It was like 2 or 3 days ago. I think it was like 2 days ago or something. On this day on Facebook said, like, you showed me shared it for the first time, and I thought, this is so cool.
I know.
It's so cool that it's been a year ago. So I went back through and I found my review and I read it. Noticed that this was back when I was still giving stars, which I hate doing. I have stopped giving stars on my blog. I don't know anybody who actually reads my blog. I no longer give stars on my blog. I will put them on Goodreads, but I don't put them on my blog.
That's smart.
Because I just don't like it. It's really hard. And
yeah,
it's
because
hard.
Sometimes you're between, like, I've read some books.
I give a lot of 4-star
I do too.
reviews.
I don't review books.
And to me, a 4-star is a great book.
And even a 3-star is a good book.
To me, a 3-star. I don't know if you saw. Did you see? I asked on Twitter.
Oh, I didn't see
whether well, I don't expect you to see everything that I put on Twitter.
I watch your every move. What are you talking about?
I asked on Twitter. And a lot of authors actually commented that I asked whether they thought a 3-star was okay, because to me, a 3-star is still a good book.
Yeah, what did they say?
And a bunch of them said that to them, a 3-star was bad.
No.
Like, to them,
it was bad.
A 3-star was like a horrible review. Like, they would consider that as in you gave them a bad review.
On Goodreads, 3 stars means I like it.
Yeah.
4-star means I really liked it. 5 stars is, oh my God, I'm telling the world about it, right? 5 stars to books that I'm thinking about when I'm not reading.
Yes.
Like,
if I can't shut up about it,
and I'm thinking about the book.
And if it's one where every time I see somebody, I'm like, oh my gosh, this book. Yeah. That's a 5-star. Like, but to me, like, a 4-star is like a great book. But I don't like giving them. And, to me, it's really hard.
You have to hold them. I don't think the mother helps move the plot forward, but what it does is, and I think we might have talked about this maybe before you started, was one of the themes that I like to talk about in books or in writing is the grieving process. I was talking about that earlier and how I find it interesting in the way people grieve, and whether you're grieving a day, it's okay, or a year, or you're grieving 10 years, whatever. And she was one of those people who happened to be grieving, and how she dealt with it completely differently. And Stephanie didn't think she should be traipsing off and going here and there, and she should be spending time with her family. And finally they go, and she says it's time to get rid of your dad's stuff, and when they pack up the stuff and go. But before that, it was like someone could see it as like they're just in denial. But to her, it was like she just wanted to stay busy. Yeah. So I think it may not necessarily move the plot forward, but it does work with the theme that I was had while writing was I like to me to see how differently people deal with the grieving process.
Said she thinks the mom was the reality of getting through the grief without dwelling on it like Stephanie was. It showed that everyone grieves differently.
Oh,
and that's what you just said.
Yeah, thank you. Like I like to read historical fiction, but I know people who only like contemporary fiction.
Yeah.
So I might give like The Book Thief, which is a 5-star book for me.
Book Thief is amazing.
Like that's one of the 5-star books I've read.
My daughter read that and was like, "You have to read this."
But I would never recommend to someone I know who won't read historical fiction because they'll hate it.
Oh, did you like the movie? Did you watch the movie?
I hated the movie.
Did you hate the movie?
I shouldn't say that.
I thought it was.
It
was okay. Like to me, it could have been a lot worse because I was afraid it was going to be I was afraid it was going to be Percy Jackson bad. And it was to me, it wasn't Percy Jackson bad, which to me is like the epitome of like that age range of book turned into like a really shitty movie.
Well, I
think like Percy Jackson
better than
but to me, The Book Thief, like it could have been worse.
I guess because it's one of my favorite books, I was expecting more. And how do you do the narration?
I don't think you can do that.
I mean,
you couldn't have because death was a it was a character.
Right.
It was such an integral part in the book that you couldn't do that in a movie really. She plays drums. I feel like that's all I gotta say. It's like she plays drums, which is like the coolest thing around.
The funny thing is, I was outside and I saw my neighbors, and they said to me, "Our little kid jumps up and down when your son plays the drums," and I had to break it to them that
it wasn't your son.
It was me.
Otherwise, I could just see them like your son went to college and they're still like, "Where's the drum sound coming from?"
Like they would probably finally realize that it's
of drums. So when you said like right off the bat, "Oh yeah," and I played the drums, I was like,
well,
I love you.
You forgot the adjectives. Sucky.
I've heard you play drums because you put it on Instagram, and
I think
I
it's deleted it because
I would be putting that shit up there all the time. Fuck it, who cares? I would be showing everybody. I would be like live every time I came home from work. You said you do that to relax.
I do. Every day I play. Let's say every day except Sundays. I do it because I give my neighbors a break.
That's what you said. I would be like at my camera set up on my thing, and I would be just playing, pretending I was the chick from the Go-Go's.
Piece pearl set. And it's blue. It's really pretty.
She's got
sparkly.
A beautiful sparkly set.
It kind of faded with the sun a little. It used to be brighter.
I would, man. I would be showing. I would be. You know I would because I'm curling my hair. I don't know. I'm like
I think I might do
a video addict.
I think maybe when there's actually a day called Hug a Drummer Day or something like that. So maybe I'll I'm kind of modest. It's more when I get.
I don't think it's a modest or a prideful thing. I just think it's fun, and why not? Fun. You know what I mean?
Well, because that could be better, and people who put their videos up, they got the whole thing out. The sound is awesome. They look.
I was so excited when you put videos up because I was like watching that shit on repeat. I was like,
the 400 views over 300.
It was me. It was all me. I was like, look at her. This is
the Foo Fighters songs, but they are so incredibly hard.
I bet because that's like
it's not your usual rhythm.
They don't realize that the drummers have real iconic sounds, and that you can notice and tell like different drummers. And to me, like Foo Fighters, that's a very distinct drum sound.
Yeah.
And so I imagine those would be really hard.
I've been trying to learn that for like a year. I finally got a lot of songs down that I wanted to learn.
Right.
Just by watching YouTube videos and then just piecing them together. But Foo Fighters are just really hard. Like there's one song in particular that I've been trying to learn, and I just basically can do the bass pedal, and that's it. Everything else is like, what?
See, and I said the Go-Go's because like when I was young, I just remember sitting in my drum kit and trying to play. We got the call the other day that it's like I just needed a guitar because I was really interested in like teaching myself how to play the guitar. But I said that if I bought myself a guitar, I would probably like shut down the blog and everything else because I would just spend my days just watching YouTube videos trying to teach myself how to play the guitar.
I have to say,
So
that I tried at one point to learn how to play guitar, and I think I played one song, and I tried to watch the YouTube videos. My brain wouldn't work.
Really?
You know, they show those tabs, and I'm like, wait, what am I supposed to do with my fingers? But learning how to play drums while watching YouTube is so much easier.
Is it easier?
Because of the camera, and you can actually follow along to learn it. But with the, I just couldn't get it with
You
the
would
guitar.
just see me sitting in here with my guitar playing.
And you can start YouTube videos with that.
Because I do like the camera. Well, we should probably go because it has been over an hour. I would love to just sit here and talk to Linda for ages, but thank you guys so much for showing up for this. I hope you enjoyed it.